Guilt is that silent visitor that, without warning, enters our mind and heart to remind us of mistakes, omissions, or deviations from what we believe is right. It manifests as a knot in the stomach, a pressure on the chest, or sometimes an inner voice telling us you weren't good enough. But what exactly is guilt? Is it merely an internal punishment, or can it become the key to opening doors toward personal growth? In this video, we will explore, from a psychological and spiritual perspective, the multiple facets of guilt, its origin, its function, and how to transform it into a tool that, rather than limiting us, propels us to become our best selves. Guilt is a complex emotion that emerges when we feel we have failed to meet our own expectations or those of others. Essentially, it is an internal indicator of a misalignment between what we do and what we believe is right. Freud described guilt as an internal psychic punishment, while Jung saw it as a necessary shadow in the process of individuation. However, beyond classical theories, guilt can also be viewed as a message, a reminder that something within us needs attention or change. Imagine guilt as that friend who, although sometimes annoying, only wants you to learn from your mistakes. It might constantly remind you of a fault you've committed, but behind that strict nudge lies an opportunity for reflection and change. This emotion can arise in situations as simple as forgetting an anniversary, or as profound as feeling that you have not fulfilled your life's goals. Guilt often arises at the intersection of expectations, whether self-imposed or external, and our own mistakes or imperfections. From childhood, we absorb messages about what is right and what is wrong, which then become internal parameters that are hard to ignore. As we grow, these parameters are reinforced through culture, family, and society. For example, a person who has always been the perfect child in their family might experience intensified guilt at even the smallest failure. Some authors have noted that guilt is the natural response to violating internal or social norms. Sigmund Freud argued that guilt is the price our conscience pays when we stray from what is considered morally acceptable. On the other hand, Viktor Frankl, with his existential approach, maintained that guilt arises from the struggle to find meaning in our actions and decisions. However, not all guilt stems from genuine internal reflection. In many cases, it is imposed externally. Systems of power, be they familial, cultural, or institutional, have used guilt as a mechanism to control and manipulate behavior. Have you ever been told, if you really loved me, you would come with me? That is a classic manipulation tactic that employs guilt to get you to act in a certain way. This externally imposed version of guilt can be extremely damaging because it is based not on our own values, but on those of others. Therefore, it is crucial to learn to discern between guilt arising from our own mistakes and guilt imposed by external factors. Undoubtedly, when guilt becomes chronic or settles in as a constant inner voice, it can become an obstacle. It may paralyze us, making us doubt our decisions and limiting our potential. For example, a person who always feels guilty about their decisions may end up avoiding taking risks or facing new challenges. In this way, guilt becomes a self-imposed prison that hinders personal growth and emotional freedom.
However, it is important to understand that guilt is not inherently negative. When acknowledged and processed consciously, it can become a valuable tool for change. Guilt can help us reflect on our actions. It invites us to analyze what went wrong and how we can improve. Develop empathy. It makes us more sensitive to the emotions of others, fostering healthier relationships. Strengthen our personal morality. It helps us define and reaffirm our values. As Viktor Frankl once said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. In this sense, guilt, by revealing our imperfections, pushes us to transform these areas into opportunities to grow and evolve. We can adjust the course of our actions to once again meet those expectations and let guilt vanish, or we can implement a more significant change. Guilt prompts us to reflect on the norms we have learned and integrated throughout our lives, and decide whether to maintain or modify them, adapting them to our current reality and feelings. If society evolves and we ourselves grow and change both internally and externally, it is logical to think that the norms and rules we've carried since time immemorial may occasionally need some adjustment. Various authors and schools of thought have offered their interpretations of guilt. From psychoanalysis, Freud viewed guilt as an inevitable consequence of the internal struggle between the ID and the superego, a manifestation of the conflict between our desires and internalized norms. From humanistic psychology, Carl Rogers promoted a compassionate view toward oneself, suggesting that guilt can be deactivated by accepting our humanity and working on self-acceptance. From the existential perspective, Viktor Frankl emphasized the importance of finding meaning in the midst of adversity, interpreting guilt as a call to action and personal responsibility. From a spiritual perspective, guilt is often seen as an opportunity for forgiveness, both towards oneself and others. Spiritual traditions encourage letting go of guilt through meditation, prayer, and forgiveness.
Let's talk about an influential work, The Wisdom of Emotions by Norberto Levi. He offers a liberating view of guilt. According to Levi, guilt is an emotion that, far from being a punishment, is a valuable messenger that shows us where our internal pain and limiting beliefs reside. Levi suggests that by listening to and understanding guilt, we can discover essential lessons about ourselves and how to live in harmony with our deepest values. Levi proposes that when guilt is accepted and integrated, it can transform into a source of emotional wisdom. Instead of judging ourselves harshly, we should ask, what is this guilt trying to tell me? What unconscious norms am I carrying that limit me and prevent me from acting in the way I choose? In this manner, guilt becomes a guide for self-knowledge and inner transformation, enabling us to act more consciously, free ourselves from self-destructive patterns, and move toward a more authentic and fulfilled version of ourselves. The first step in transforming guilt is to acknowledge it without judgment. Accepting that we all make mistakes and that guilt is a natural human response is fundamental to no longer seeing it as a perpetual condemnation. Here are some practical tips to achieve this. Recognize and name your feelings. Identifying that you feel guilt is the beginning of addressing it. You might write in a journal about your emotions and explore their origin. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a good friend. Remember that to err is human and every mistake is an opportunity to learn. Approaching things with a sense of humor can help ease certain situations, even in your internal dialogue. Engage in internal dialogue. Instead of repressing or fighting guilt, converse with it. Ask yourself, what do I need to learn from this experience? And allow that emotion to guide you toward change. Seek forgiveness. Forgive yourself. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing mistakes, but rather releasing the burden that prevents you from moving forward. Change the narrative. Replace self-critical thoughts with positive affirmations. If guilt tells you, I can't do anything right, counter it with, I am learning to do things right and growing every day. If we manage to understand and transform guilt, it becomes a powerful ally. Instead of being a limiting force, it turns into an indicator that we are willing to take responsibility for our actions. It reminds us that, although we cannot change the past, we have the power to decide how to act in the present and build a future more aligned with our values. Considering all that has been discussed, guilt should not be a chain that binds you to the past, nor an excuse to not move forward giving your best. It is simply a signal, a messenger that, if you learn to listen, will reveal valuable lessons to help you become the best version of yourself. Remember that every mistake, if it truly is an error, is an opportunity to grow. Do not get stuck in your failures. Let every stumble be an invitation to rise even stronger. Laugh more at your imperfections. This does not preclude taking responsibility for them with maturity. And if in the process you encounter that guilt companion again, greet it with a smile and say, today, you are not going to stop me. Do not allow guilt to define and take control of your life. Instead of carrying it like a heavy backpack, embrace its message to free yourself and transform your path. As Norberto Levi wisely said, it is not guilt that stops us, but the fear of facing who we truly are. Dare to look within, forgive yourself, and rewrite the narrative of your life. And remember, guilt is not a punishment or an end, it is an opportunity, and thus also a beginning. If you found this video interesting, give it a like and share it. That way you'll be helping me continue creating content that can contribute to others. Thank you very much.